Welcome, everybody. Hello, friends. It's really good to be here. We're really happy and lucky to have Nicole Ashley here with us, and we've also got another guest from Canon. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank and welcome everyone for joining us for tonight's event. Everywhere and anywhere can be your studio. I want to give a big thank you to Canon Canada for sponsoring this evening's event. My name is Jolene. I'm here from McBain, and I'm super excited to introduce tonight's presenter. Nicole Ashley is an Edmonton-based photographer. She's been doing weddings, boudoir, portraits, you name it, for like a decade probably, working with makeup and hair artists from behind the blush for the past several years. She's a proud Canon ambassador and with an impressive resume and a great deal of experience in making subjects and places look whimsical and lovely in a variety of settings. And she's here to give us a glimpse into her creative process and techniques. So before I hand things off to Nicole, though, I'm just going to do a really quick info dump for the viewers. So first of all, if you do have questions during the presentation, feel free to drop them in the comments. We're going to store them up kind of until the end of the presentation, and then kind of tackle the Q&A all at once. If you'd like to ask a question but are unable to post or comment, I'm going to post an email address that you can just shoot that question in the form of an email to me, and I will pass it along to Nicole, and we'll try to answer it in a timely fashion. And also, please feel free to follow and subscribe to all of McBain's social media pages, which can be found on almost all platforms as at McBain Camera. So I'm going to hand things off to Nicole, but first we have a few words from Russell Brown from Canon Canada, so he's going to take it away first.
Just wanted to thank you all for spending your night with us tonight. Obviously, McBain Camera has been a great partner of Canon's for a very, very long time. And we're very happy to be partnering with them to be able to present Nicole, who's been a Canon ambassador for some time now. And so basically, I just wanted to thank you again for all joining us tonight. And at the end, we'll get to a question and answer period, as Jolene said there. If you have any Canon specific questions, anything that's not particularly just for Nicole, feel free to ask those, and I can address those as best I can at the end of the presentation as well. But without further ado, here's Nicole.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for being here. Always so excited to do any projects with Canon, and I love partnering with McBain. This is a topic I get asked about a lot, so I have a ton of information and examples to show you guys, and I'm really glad you're here. So we were just kind of playing with the technical aspects of the presentation. I'm using a Keynote, so I'm going to be kind of figuring out how to get the windows working so that we can get proper audio for you guys. So if it takes a little second or two, don't worry, we're going to get it sorted here. So I'm going to open my Keynote, and we will get things started for you guys.
So Nicole's going to share us or share her screen, and Russ and I are going to disappear for a little bit while she's given the presentation.
Yes.
So you don't have to stare at our ugly mugs the whole time. Just sitting there awkwardly in awe of your pictures. All right.
Okay, so hopefully you guys can see my screen here.
It's looking good on my end, so
okay,
should be good to go.
Okay,
all right, Nicole, take it away.
Thank you. Okay, so the fact that you guys are here means that you are invested in your business, or that you're curious about photography. Perhaps you're considering renting out a studio, or you already have one. Whatever reason you're here, I'm glad you're here. We're going to go through a couple, again, transformations. I'm going to show you how I work within spaces that I'm already given, and how I would transform the space, and how you can take ordinary locations into extraordinary ones. But the key thing that you need to worry about when you're working with these spaces is light. For those of you who don't know me, I'm going to go through a couple things. First of all, again, my name is Nicole. I've been married to my husband, John, for the last 15 years. We've been together a really long time. we weren't, or I wasn't always a photographer. I actually used to be a teacher. So for any of you who are doing photography part-time or who have another job, that doesn't make you any less of an artist or a photographer. I know a lot of people feel that way at first, so don't feel that way if you're not a full-time running business. It takes time, and if you want it, you'll get there. So yes, my journey was that I started off as a teacher. Photography was something I did on the side, and John was also a teacher. He taught for a few years, longer than I did, but we were both very creative people and wanted to pursue other things. I was just always kind of playing with a camera, and I was sharing it to social media. And, you know, the funny thing about social media, you start sharing and other people start resharing. And I kept getting asked, like, oh, would you photograph this or this? I wasn't at all taking money for photography, and slowly but surely I started saying yes until I built up enough of a portfolio to friends and family that I could actually charge. And it kind of slowly tumbled into something organically. So I wasn't expecting to be a full-time artist, and it just kind of happened. So I am self-trained. And me talking about John is that he is now a full-time artist himself. He's a tattooer. So if you're in the position that you aren't doing something creative, but you're interested in it and you want to do something full-time, you can get there. It just, you know, takes a lot of hard work, and you should surround yourself with people who believe in you, and you can do it too. And I have a beautiful family. Actually, I was just letting everyone know on the tech side of this, like right before I started up this webcam, I was cleaning up baby vomit in Charlie's crib. So that was fun. It was her subtle way of telling me she didn't like my outfit. So I had to do a whole change there. But the reason why I bring up family is that I know there's an overwhelming audience of women out there and mothers out there that love photography and are doing it while trying to raise a family and struggle with work-life balance. And I will say, before I became a parent, I very much so would eat, sleep, breathe photography, and I would push myself to extremes. Now, having a family, I'm very particular about what I take on, what clients I work with. I only do stuff that feeds my soul and makes me happy. And to be honest, ever since having that forced boundary, it's actually made me a better artist. So even if you don't have kids or animals or anything extra aside from yourself right now, and you have all your time and energy to give to it, I highly encourage you to have boundaries. Jana, if you are familiar with my work, this is probably someone that you have seen often on my social media. She is the hair and makeup artist that I work with almost all the time. We get hired to work all over the world together. She is a phenomenal human being. And, you know, if the job wasn't already as fun as it is, without her, I get to hang out with my best friend almost every day. I get to create fun things with her. Most of our photo shoots look like this. And we get to have a lot of fun and get to work with a lot of different creatives. And if that wasn't enough, we get to create beautiful artwork for people that they get to cherish for the rest of their lives. So I don't know how many of you are tuning in are wedding photographers, how important our work is, and how it's essentially you're creating heirlooms for people's families. So yes, the job is fun. You get to travel around the world. You get to meet new interesting people all the time, but it is so much more than that. It truly is an honor to get to be a part of people's lives. So again, if you're tuning in and say you are just a consumer of Canon, or you are a fan of McBain, or you shop there and you don't know who I am, my portfolio and my main focus is mostly wedding work and also portraiture. So I would say a lot of people know me for couples portraits. I do solo portraiture as well, but weddings is where I have my main focus. If you don't shoot anything like weddings or couples or portraits, this is still an amazing workshop for you, because we're going to talk about how to work with different environments, different kinds of light, and how you can make that work with your subjects. So it should apply to all photographers. So again, I shoot a lot of destination work, which forces me to have to kind of create studio spaces everywhere. So sometimes I show up to a location and I don't have a whole lot of time to scout. This could be because I'm connecting from a different flight, or I have to catch a specific train or something like that. Or sometimes I only get a few hours, not in the time that I would be shooting the client. So I've gotten really good at coming up with things on the fly and looking for light and composition and making that work with what I need it to be. If you don't do destination and you just work within a studio space, again, this is still for you. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But before we get into anything to do with like studio space, environment, locations, let's talk about gear, because I know there's probably a few gearheads out there. This is an old flat lay. It was just too cute not to share. And I still use a lot of the equipment in this photo. Pictured here is my Canon 5D Mark IV. I still use that as my main backup camera. I have a few cameras, but my main go-to camera is the R5. It's beautiful. The upgrade is 1,000% worth it. The main workhorse that's on my straps is my R5 with my 50 RF, or my RF 50 1.2. That combination is chef's kisses. On my Mark IV, I have my tilt shift on there quite a bit. I actually just upgraded in here on this photo. It's the 45 that I have pictured, but I just upgraded to the 50 1.2. So, or sorry, the 50 millimeter tilt 2.8. And it is stunning. I haven't had it that long, so I've only had 2 shoots with it. But a big reason why I wanted to upgrade from the 45 to the 50 2.8 is that it's also a macro lens. So really it's a 2-in-1. I know tilt shift isn't a super popular lens for a lot of people to use, but it's really versatile. It honestly I find that it helps me to make really boring locations really interesting because it gives such a dreamy blur. Especially if I'm out in nature, I find that it almost always stays on my hip. So I know that's not really common, but if you haven't played with the tilt shift, I really urge you to do so because it's such a fun lens to play with, especially if you can get your hands on that lens. But so the 50, both are like a 50 that I'm like, that's where I feel really comfortable with. But I also have the 70-200 2.8. Not pictured here. I have some pro photo lighting. I use different backdrops as well. My flashes I only really use during receptions. I don't use those a whole lot. About 90% of my portfolio is natural light. But I will get into talking to that a bit later. But if you have camera questions, there's so many talented people on here that know so much about them. I just know for sure having the best body to start off with is going to allow you to push your lighting and your location so much more. So for me, my choice is the R5 and the Mark IV. So let's get to that, because with proper gear, you can use, with proper gear and the proper use of light, that is like where the magic happens for me. Because truly, light is a storyteller. It's everything when it comes to photography. And when you know what you're doing with light, that's when you can get really creative with it. So it's so important if you are new here and you don't fully understand your camera that you learn it as best that you can so that you can understand the boundaries that you can push your camera with, because if you don't have certain lenses or whatnot, there's different variables of ISO settings you're going to be able to use versus different shutter speeds. So it's important that you understand light and the capabilities in your camera before you start charging for services or trying to get into it professionally. So play with your equipment, shoot every day, super important. Some artists lean into like bright and airy and others lean into moody. So knowing where you gravitate is going to help you into knowing how to push your push your camera. Using it properly allows you to direct your viewers and the feelings and the emotions that you want to convey in your images. So that's also an important factor when you are shooting, is knowing if you will lean to one side versus the other. Some people are really down the middle, and then you have the flexibility of kind of dabbling in both. But I would say that I lean more into the moodier side, so that that definitely changes how I shoot and how I use lighting. So some artists are all natural light, and some prefer only studio lighting, and others like myself dabble in both. Primarily, like I said, I would say like 90% of my portfolio is natural light, but I have been playing with professional lighting a lot lately. I like not having the limitations and it forces my creativity in other ways. So I do strongly encourage you, if you are curious about lighting, to play with it and to not be scared of it. I know that's a big thing for a lot of artists when they are starting out. You know, but ultimately, if you're working in one bedroom and you have one window, you can create magic. Truly, like if I could show you, like if I could bring you into the bedroom that I used for the last 8 years and I was shooting in, you would, it'd almost be comical that I shot so much in there. Because it's such a small room with such a small window, but if you use certain lenses and lighting, you can make anything work. So it's important that you know how to work with the lighting that you are given with if you're restricted that way and you say you don't have a studio space, or if you're just showing up to a client's house. And even here you can see this is in the same spot, but just turning the model into a different tone. So turning her gave a much more moodier look with the lighting. So also trying to know what your end game is with your client of what you're trying to achieve is important. Because essentially all you need is a sliver of light to create magic. But it's important to understand what to do if there's too much of it. You need to know, you don't understand how many times I get told, like, I don't know what to do. Somebody's wedding day is at noon and it's going to be so bright. How do I work with that? And you need to understand how to push your camera or what to do or how to expose it properly in order to work with it after with software. So know what to do when you don't have enough light and what your camera's capabilities are, and what to do when you have too much of it. That is so important. For example, you would never know it looking at this photo now, but this was a very, very, very bright setup here. So I was shooting a getting ready scene out on her balcony, and this is obviously not in Edmonton. This is away for destination wedding. And it was so bright, but I knew if I underexposed it to a certain degree and that I could bring back detail with software, knowing my camera's capabilities. If I wanted to retain sky detail and make sure that I could pull up the shadows enough that you could see enough of the detail in like her back and her hair and whatnot. So brand new photographer, me, like I would say 10 years ago, would have been terrified of this moment. And I remember shooting this thinking, thank goodness, I understand my camera. I know what to do here. So it's really important, again, before you have clients trusting you on a really important day, that you fully understand what to do with light so that you can truly make anywhere your studio. So now that we've gotten through light, because I feel like I couldn't really get into everything else without talking about light, we can get into some important factors when it comes to knowing if you should to studio or to not studio. There's a lot of pressure when becoming an artist to have your own studio space, especially if you live somewhere cold like Canada. I know right now, any of my fellow Canadians who are watching, it's like -27 in Canada right now. So yes, when you live somewhere warm, I would say especially you feel like you don't need a studio, because you can always just pop your clients outside, or you can make like any outdoor space a studio. But when you have winter 8 months of the year, you do need to come up with some indoor alternatives. I remember when I first started, and I would tell people I was a photographer, the first question I would get asked is, oh, do you have a studio space somewhere? Which now looking back, I think people just ask that to ask that. But it made me feel very insecure to call myself a photographer and to call myself an artist, because I didn't have a studio. I was shooting out of a bedroom. I want you to know that if you're feeling the same way, please don't. There are very, very seasoned photographers that don't have a studio and do what I do and photograph in people's homes, outside. There's people who rent studios. For me, I used to live in a really small townhouse, and I'm going to show you examples of how exactly I made that a studio. And I had a very small room, one window, and I shot a good chunk of my career in that space. So if you have a space in your home, doesn't matter how big or how small, and you have one window, you can make it work. And better yet, if you're really comfortable with studio lighting, then you don't even need a window. You can make a garage or a basement work. So a lot of people feel like that hitches them up on their career, and it doesn't need to. So I don't want you to feel like you're getting stuck there. I'm going to show you even how I did that through a project. This is just a personal project that I called Characters. And with this project, I wanted to force myself to have to get to know people very quickly in a short amount of time. So I literally, I'm just gonna open this up in any window here. I would literally meet people, and you'll probably recognize some of these are photographers, and I'll show you some more of their pages here too. And I would give myself maybe like 5 minutes max and ask them to give me 2 words to describe themselves. And within those 5 minutes, I would try to photograph them in different ways to show off their personality. So depending on what they said, I would have them do really extreme poses, or do, you know, really withdrawn or fun or loud or quiet poses. And my whole purpose of setting up this personal project was, again, to teach myself to get to know people and to get comfortable with photographing strangers really quickly. But what became hard with this project is that I wasn't always photographing people in the same space, in the same lighting. So at first, when I started going to photography workshops, I'd actually take a piece of black backdrop and I would travel with it. And I would bring it around to different like hotel rooms and get people to stand in front of it. But then I was like, I got kind of bored and it wasn't as challenging. So as I traveled around the world and was doing this project, so like I was shooting this in Belize, in Australia, in Switzerland. It didn't make sense to travel with a backdrop. So I started using hotel doors. I used a black t-shirt. Like I started using anything just with a dark backdrop to get these photos. So it's funny now looking at it and seeing how they turned out, because obviously, like if you pinpoint it, you can see that some backdrops are darker than others. But I thought that was kind of fun, that was a part of the challenge of like, what will I use? And I tried not to do too much retouching with it, because I wanted it to, again, be about the people and their expressions. But I literally would make, like I said, hotel doors. I shot one in an alley. I used t-shirts. I used a woman's black skirt once, a jacket, anything to create a dark backdrop to do this project. So I just wanted to show you guys that example to show you that, like, truly that project was really hard to do and really fun. And it was just totally a personal project that I wanted to do to test myself. But I didn't shoot any of these in a studio space. They were all natural light, all different locations, all different lighting. Okay, so back to my townhouse, my tiny room. So I should have gotten the measurements from it, but you can see by the lamp, like in the distance of the bed, how small it was. But that window was just a small window. This is what it looked like when I moved in. So I knew that's what I had to work with. So we ended up putting up with a faux brick wall and building a Murphy bed so that we could flip it up whenever I had clients when I was doing portraits, or have it down if I was doing like boudoir or something where somebody needed the bed. But we added everything to it to create this. So this was obviously much more of a like bohemian style, but I added fake plants. I painted different backdrops for it, added bedding, bought a bunch of like decor and pillows and everything to add to it, and added a bunch of twinkly lights. And I would move things around to have different nooks. And again, if you think if you're shooting with a 50 in a small space, you have a lot of ability of like how you can make that space work for you. But yes, I shot in this small room for like 8 years, so long. And here, this is an old shot of my living room when I first lived in there, and we had put that faux brick in there as well. And just to change up the lighting, because the living room windows were bigger than that small window, I thought one day, like I'd love to use that tall vertical axis of the wall of the brick, and I'd love to shoot down here. And even though it was a nightmare to rearrange everything, I literally spent the day unplugging everything, moving the couch, the TV, that trunk, that like chest with a candle on it that's so heavy, everything out of the way so that I could do a Christmas shoot in there. So this again is in my own house that I was doing all of this. So we brought down a mattress. I bought a bunch of different books and got some greenery and faux pampas grass from a florist. I even hung up all of the pom-poms and the stockings, and I did everything, even up to like wrapping presents. You can see under the tree, those are all presents there. So those are actually like cereal boxes and different small boxes that I wrapped in wrapping paper to like set the scene. I even made hot chocolate, and Janet put out her Mariah Carey Christmas album. So like to transform this space, which it does just look like a loft bedroom, it is a lot of work, but it's, you know, I'm not doing anything here that anyone else can't do. This was literally just a living room space that I added everything. Like behind the scenes, there's like the couch and the TV and like everything. But, you know, if you have a window, you can make a studio, truly. And I'll even show you, I have the full session on here just so you can see some more of the setup. So again, I went through my, like, I think we shot this in September. So I had to go and get like all of the Christmas stuff out early. I set it all up on the fireplace. Again, wrapped all the presents. We put up the Christmas tree. That, to be honest, putting up the Christmas tree was actually the most annoying thing. Getting out all the Christmas bulbs and doing all of that. But it was totally worth it. It was so worth it for this couple shoot and to create something special, and honestly, even just worth it for me as an artist to have a new, fresh space to work in. Like in the other room, there's no way we would have been able to get the Christmas tree and all of the decor up there. Like it's just too small of a space. So yeah, I really loved how this session turned out, even though it was so much work. So again, as long as you have a window and you have the drive and the hard work to put into it, you can do this too. This is another session I really love. So this shoot, I was actually really lucky enough to work in a great foundation, a great space. So this was just, it already had like great textured floors and a nice brick background, and it had obviously beautiful big windows, but every single thing you see in this space is something that we brought in. So this was in downtown Edmonton. We brought an air mattress. That picture is a picture that was in my bathroom. The ladder, the light that's even hung. Janine from Fabulosity hung that. We brought in the plants, even the empty cardboard boxes. I brought those in for my mom's work. She works for like a hair salon, so got a bunch of boxes from her, all to create and set a scene and set a tone for the story we were trying to tell with this shoot. Again, so much work, but it was so worth it. So I was supposed to photograph this couple moving into their first place together in Boston, but last minute he got relocated to Texas. So when they were randomly in town, we talked about recreating their move in together because we had already dreamed up this beautiful shoot of moving into their home, which had a very similar feel to this. So we didn't want to lose that aspect of their storytelling, so we just recreated it, and we made lots of use of the space. I got them to move around a lot and get into lots of different angles, and being able to make use of your space and storytell with it will increase the variety of images that you get. So, you know, this was super special to them, and it was a really cool shoot for me, and again, got me out of my comfort zone, and creatively it was fun to do something different than shooting in my bedroom. Of course, we could have just like gone outside and did outside photos for them, but I love that we stuck to, no, like, let's find a way to like recreate your story together. This is a shoot that I did for, they're now very dear friends of mine, but for their shoot, we wanted to show like the cozy at home kind of like making Sunday morning breakfast together. But realistically, if they were to make breakfast together, they would be turned facing where their stove is against the good light. So all of their window light is obviously what they're facing in this image. So getting into a space, especially if you're going to a client's home and working in their space, it's important to go in and assess what the best light is going to be for your clients. So even if they were to do something in one certain area, you might have to readjust and get them to face a different way in order to make the best use of your like studio for the shoot. Don't be scared to tell that to your clients and say like, I know you do it this way, but like just for lighting, I think we should face you here or tell a story this way. Because sometimes we don't have the luxury of having, you know, floor to ceiling windows everywhere. And especially if you're not using studio lighting and you're just going off window light, you have to make it work with that. But it actually worked out even better because I love that you could see like the reflection and whatnot in their, like over the stove. And I got them to interact with their cat, and we got a bunch of funny photos because what's happening here is every time the toast would pop up, their cat would go and like bite the toast like this. So instead of just making it, you know, they're an adorable couple and they had just bought their new home and they got this cat. And we could have done photos of them in a park holding hands, doing whatever, and in a location that means nothing to them. But I wanted to make their, like the shoot's studio space, something that actually had meaning to them. So doing it in their home, in their space, and getting adorable photos like this of their cat who's being a thief with their toast was so worth it. So really, like, a client's kitchen could be your studio space. And I'm just going to show you a little bit more of this session too, because we went even further and I did some couples or some like solo portraits and couple shots of them here. Like all of this where people think that they need a studio. Again, this is just in their kitchen. And yes, they have 3 cats. They're all rescues. These 2 love animals so much. But I got lots of stuff that I'm so proud of, just getting them hanging out in their kitchen. But you see here, if I would have had 2 of them interacting here, turned not into the great light, that would have been hard to get all of that like laughing and hanging out with where their toaster normally is. So it was so worth it to get them facing the window light to get all of those adorable moments. And then even just getting them interacting in different spots of their kitchen, utilizing the space, showing off different details of how they hang out. It's so important when you're in a location to shuffle your feet. Don't just find one good nook. And if you find magic lighting in one spot, shoot it until you feel good, but then definitely move your feet because you never know what different angle, different lighting you could be missing on. And so important to shoot high, shoot low, all different angles. Don't just shoot at that boring eye level. Push yourself. yourself, push yourself to do more than that. Your clients deserve it, and it's way more creative for you too. And make use of the space. So obviously, like, not every day, I'm sure they're sitting on their countertop, but getting that different height variation there made it so much more fun and so much more interesting. And then their cat jumped up, and we got a bunch of cute photos that way too. So I'm just showing this all to you because literally I could have spent this entire session just in their kitchen shooting it. And then later on, we obviously did this a lot. They had just moved in, so they had a blank room with one window. Nothing was in it. So Jana and I went in and we brought a bed, all of these pillows, all of this pampas grass. You've probably seen this before, twinkle lights, and their vases from downstairs, and we staged their bed in here. This is because in the other room where their bed was, the light wasn't as great. So I wanted to have the full flexibility of what I could do for their couple session, and we staged everything in here. And again, this is all just the one window light, but through adding different textures and blankets and everything else, we made this into another studio space. I'm just gonna go through these quickly so you can kind of see all these different things. Again, this is a lot of work, but so worth it when you get to create images like this. But this isn't stuff that you can't collect and do yourself. Okay. Here's literally a side-by-side of, again, another staging situation here. So I was in Portland for work, and while I was there, it was raining, shocker. And my clients and I only had one day to play with, and they didn't want all of their engagement photos to be rainy. So I was looking at the Airbnb I was staying at, and I was like, okay, so maybe we'll shoot some of it inside this Airbnb. Luckily enough, it was an adorable Airbnb, but look how small that bathroom window was. Very tiny. So before I even tested it with clients, Jana and I went around this Airbnb and collected different plants, and Jana put up her robe, and we styled this bathroom to look like kind of like a jungle bathroom oasis. And I actually got in the tub and got her to take a photo of me just so I could see the way the light would hit me and everything, just to be like, okay, like, can I make a session out of this? Like, could we do like a couple's like bubble bath, have them like brushing their teeth and being cute in the bathroom, and make this into our studio space. And it looked awesome. It was super exciting. And so I had all of my like, creativity going and flowing, and I was ready for that shoot. It actually turned out that the weather cleared up and we did shoot all outside, but I'm glad that when I work with her that we have the drive to be like, let's go all out and check out all of our backups just in case, because it really does lead you into like really cool shoots like this. So even though we didn't use it for the couple, this is a great before and after to show how you can transform the space. And sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes your clients, they actually live in a really interesting space that is fun for you to shoot in. For this couple, obviously they're tattoo artists. This space was, you know, really dynamic, really showed off their personality. It had a lot going on. So a big bonus when you shoot in a couple space is that they're typically more comfortable. They're like, they interact in a way that is more at ease than being in a Stark studio space. So I feel like I tend to get more out of couples that way, but that's why it's so important when I do host clients and I do have them at my house or at a studio space, if you're renting or anything like that, that you do a lot of things to make them feel comfortable. So that would be things like making sure the temperature is good, having candles going or a nice room spray, having food and refreshments. I know with COVID, that's kind of like, do you do it or do you not do it right now? But that's typically what I do, playing good music. I usually ask clients what kind of music they like to listen to, and I have that music playing during the shoot, because even just that element adds to it and they feel more comfortable during the shoot. So it's so important that you treat your clients almost like you're hosting your friends, whether you're in their environment or in yours. and other environments, other locations. I was shooting for a fashion brand here, and I was shooting at an airport, but with good window lighting and unique angles and leading lines, I was able to make this escalator shot into a studio space. Because truly, like, you can make beauty out of anything. You just have to know what you're looking for, what your end result is. So I've shown this example before, but I was driving by a big garbage bin one day, and off to the side of it was like this little field of flowers. And when I say field, that's kind of misleading, because I would say it's more like a pocket, like a pocket of flowers. So imagine a huge garbage bin, and then beside it was this like little space of flowers. But I had driven by it a few times, and I always thought, like, if I ever have a client in this area, like, I'd like to put it in there, just because they were like a really pretty tone of yellow. And if you shoot it at a certain angle or at a certain depth, you make it look like it's literally a huge field. So you would never know that right behind her, there's a garbage bin and there's like a half broken crate in front of him. And this one, so this was actually behind a 7-Eleven. It smelled really bad. Somebody had freshly urinated not far from it, but it was so worth it. This was one of those, I think they're called silver willows, but it's where it has that really pretty tone of green to the tree. And it was just, I love the depth and all of the texture that it gave. So for her, because it was such a hilarious location, I had to be like, please, like, trust me. This is a really pretty spot. I've driven by here so many times, and I'd love to shoot you here. And she was like, okay. But it was so worth it, and it definitely looked really good. Here's another example. So I was in Switzerland with Jana, and I was looking for a spot to show off that I was pregnant and for like a baby announcement. And I was like, I really want to find something that will go with my outfit, that'll be like really tonal with my outfit. And I found this little nook with like a pipe, and it was by, like, you can't tell in this photo, but this was like a broken window. And in all the places, like, Switzerland is obviously beautiful. I found this area, and I was like, oh, but I knew what it could be. I knew that if we framed it right, that it could be a really beautiful photo. So this is the before, and then that's what we created after. So I just imagined it without the pipe, obviously with like my presets on it and the right framing and a bit of a tilt, and it was perfect. So obviously some sets are a lot more work than others, and a lot more extensive. This is just an empty room, literally just an empty room. Everything in here is stuff that we brought in for a workshop. So from the bed to all the plants, all the different layerings of the pots and the crystals and everything else, that was all brought in and designed by us. So this, I try not to show this too often to people when they're wanting to learn how to transform rooms, because this is really extreme. And usually it takes like a huge team to do this. So if you want to be ambitious and do something like that, like yourself, that's awesome. But don't feel like that you have to go to that lengths. Again, this was for a workshop. This is something more so you could do on your own. This is actually my kitchen. So this is my dining room area, but I was shooting for a mattress company and another fashion brand. So I needed to have a certain look, and I knew I wanted that particular light and the painting that we had up in that space. So I had to take out the dining room table and all of the chairs and the rug and rearrange the entire room to make it look like a bedroom. But if I didn't tell you that was my dining room, you probably would never know. And I even did a reel about it to showcase the before. So you'll see very quickly that's what it was before. That was as the dining room. And then we had to actually bring down the mattress from upstairs, bring out all of the pillows and the bedding, I brought the side tables from my bedroom downstairs and added styling. That's my Charlie and our cat Blanche. Got them my test subjects and was like, okay, sweet. I can shoot this as a studio space. So it looks intimidating when you see finished spaces, but once you see like all behind the scenes, it just takes the like, oh, like I could do that too. It's just important that you, you know, you see all of the aspects of it, because I don't want anyone to ever feel defeated saying like, oh, if I only had this, or I only had so much money that I had this space. You can do this anywhere. I've even made a dirty river into a studio space. I tried to dig up the photos of the finished product to show you, because I literally had a model like sticking up out of the water for this, but I couldn't find it in time. But you can literally make a dirty river your studio space. And again, all you need is a sliver of light. And for this shoot, I had the smallest window that I was working with here. But again, because I shoot moodier, I knew it didn't matter, and I knew I could control the lighting with my camera and shoot it a certain way as well. So I was able to get something like this. And here's an example of shooting on the go as well. So this is a hotel room. This is just one side window light, but it looks very much so like studio lighting. And have fun when you're working in different spaces. This model was just up against like a boring wood wall. So I used a prism to get this rainbow effect across like her eyes and her forehead. So there's different things and instruments you can use, and different kinds of prisms you can use to create interesting light, to make the space more interesting, or to make something feel more like a studio. And props. Props are something that can really help with your studio space and really help with the storytelling of it. So if you really want to make something look like they're cooking breakfast together, you can have certain props that you want here. So here we have her looking like she's making pancakes. We randomly found this flour, but we definitely don't have all the mix. And the coffee in this pot here is not actually coffee. I can't remember what it is. I think it was molasses that we put in there, but it wasn't coffee. But again, looking at this little setup, you would never know that. But the props really played into it, looking like a pro studio space that they were hanging out at, not just like a little Airbnb. And it's important when you're using props. Like, remember when I made the hot chocolate, I even did like chocolate shavings and the marshmallows, is that you actually have those props in those mugs and everything, because again, if you have them kissing or interacting or holding a mug, if nothing is in it, they're going to kind of like hold it kind of flimsy. You want them to actually hold something like with proper weight in their hand, so that it is believable. And then of course, if you're shooting and you shoot a little like high up and you can see that nothing is in the mug, that's not going to be a fun time photoshopping that in there. Nature can be a studio space, and I use nature as a prop all the time to get them to interact with a way without damaging it, like with the leaves or with flowers. Again, if you're in Edmonton, we don't always get flowers like this. This was shot in Portland. But I didn't need to go and rent a fancy studio. We could go outside and make different spaces work. As props, if your client smoke, you can have the prop being the cigarette smoke, or you can use that aerosol spray. I've used that before a few times now, and it's so fun to work with. Food, so making ice cream be your prop. This was just shot outside the ice cream shop. Books is a really fun one. Just make sure if you use books in your setup that you have clients interacting with them. So that could be reading them, holding them different ways. Going back to the bathroom look, I've used bathrooms before all the time. Anytime I go anywhere, all of my friends know if it's a new restaurant, a new place, I always look at the bathroom. Always look at the bathroom, because it's a really interesting bathroom or it's really fun. There might be a reason that I want to try to go back there and shoot in there. This particular bathroom is just in the client's home. So I wanted to kind of storytell. They had just moved into their first home together, and I wanted to storytell that. So I had them kind of like hanging out and like brushing their teeth in this bathroom together. But I've definitely gone back to commercial places and shot in bathrooms before. So pro tip, always check out bathrooms. Pillow feathers. Pillow feathers can be a prop. They're really messy and not fun to clean up, but they're fun to shoot. And animals, of course. Clients, it's so funny. Now that when clients hire me and they know they're very familiar with my work, they just like know they can bring their dogs or cats or their pets to shoots. But I love when people bring their animals to shoots because it brings out a difference out of their personality. And I hate saying prop because obviously they're like a family member, but it kind of like fits in that category. But yeah, I always say yes to pets coming. Even your hair can be a prop. This is very much so like kind of like a studio look to it, but she's literally just playing with her hair in a corner of a room. Or this is me just playing with my hair here, but it gives off like a really cool, I literally like was just kind of going like this and kept petting my bangs to get this different studio look. Pizza can be a different prop for sure. Just to make sure, again, if you have any kind of like prop or food, don't just have it sitting there. Get the clients actually interacting and using it. Again, if I panned back, you would see that this is like not an impressive corner, but if you have your clients interacting and that they're engaging with one each other and that the lighting is good, your focus isn't going to be necessarily in the background. It's going to be on them and what they're doing. And here, like, do you even care about the background right now? No. And again, ice cream. This was actually in a really busy street corner in New York. And it smelled really bad. There was garbage like all around our feet. If you've been to New York, you know how it is there. But I wanted to make it look really dreamy and romantic. So to get more of that dreamy effect, I knew that if I turned them from the light and backlit it, I would get really pretty soft romantic lighting. And I framed it in a certain way that they were covering up some of the garbage. So I got really cool lines from the crosswalk on all of that dreamy lighting. So when I see this photo, it's funny. I wish I would have panned back and took a photo of it, how it actually looked, but all that was delivered to the clients was this like dreamy romantic little moment. And it's really important for you to not wait for magic to create it when you are working with clients. I think as artists, a lot of times when we get really caught up in the location or in the lighting, and if we see a client and they're not turned into the right lighting, or they're fidgeting with their hands, or you don't like the way their posture is, it's important for you not to wait for it, but to create the look that you want to get. So tell them to move their shoulders, tell them to turn into the light, tell them to interact with the environment in a way that works with the storytelling. I know it can be intimidating, especially if you are new, but it's way better to tell them what you are hoping to get and what you're hoping to do. And it makes you look like more of a professional suggesting how they pose than just waiting for them to do something. And also the longer you wait and don't give instruction, it just gets them flustered and makes them feel like you don't know what you're doing. So if lighting or something isn't working with it, just kind of shoot through a few moments of what you can, and then change the pose, change the setup, or take them outside, do something so that you're not stuck shooting something you don't want to be shooting. This shot too, I've actually had a few photographers ask me how I lit this. This is that same one window in my bedroom. I literally just flipped her on one side, turned her away from the window light, and this was shot close to sunset, so it was pretty dark in there. And then again, because I'm a moodier photographer, I shot at certain settings to darken it even that much more, but you can still see all of the detail in the shadows and in the highlights as well. But that is all natural light. And the biggest thing that's stopping you as an artist is you. It's so important to push yourself and to try new things, try new locations, try staging different setups, try different rooms in your house, or if you do have a studio space, try transforming your space into different looks. If you're lucky enough to have a studio space, that's awesome, but don't get caught up in having it one certain way. change things around, paint the walls, put up different backdrops, try out different lighting. It's so important to keep creative and to feed your own creative energy to push yourself. And lastly, I talk about this every time I talk to photographers because I don't know who's watching this that's brand new. It's so important for you to recognize that if you are new to this industry, or even if you are seasoned, that there is space for you. I know coming into photography or even staying relevant photography can feel intimidating. I know when I started, it was really lonely and I spent a lot of time researching stuff on my own and looking up the photographers and just feeling like I was tackling things and trying to figure it out all on my own. Workshops weren't really huge when I first started. And now I find that the community is, especially here in Edmonton and in Alberta in general, I would say, the community now is very, very welcoming and very kind. And there's so many resources online, but it's still intimidating. And like I said, that goes for new artists and for seasoned. But if you are feeling like you don't belong for some reason, again, say you have that part-time job, you don't have a studio space, you're just doing it on the side, or you've been doing it forever and you don't feel like because you're on TikTok or anything like that, that you're not relevant, there's still space for you in this community. So don't give up with that. And that's it. That's all. Thank you so much for listening to all of that. I hope that was informative for you and that it showed you how you can work with certain spaces that you have and how you can transform them, or how you can create it literally out of nothing, or out of a chunk of flowers beside a dumpster. Really anywhere and everywhere can be your studio. And I hope that keynote helped you to see that.
Well, that was pretty great. We are going to get to the question and answer portion very shortly.
Okay.
So certainly if any of you viewers today have any questions for Nicole, if you have any questions about Canon in particular, I can certainly address those here as well. But before we get to that, I do want to just kind of give some thank yous for tonight's presentation. So I want to thank all of you for viewing tonight on behalf of Canon Canada for spending your evening with us. And we hope you enjoyed Nicole's presentation. I certainly found it very inspiring. And I mean, your talent is fantastic. I mean, there's no denying that. So really, really great stuff.
Thank you.
I want to thank McBain Camera for administering the live stream, and hats off to Jolene and their incredible team. For the guests tonight, I just wanted to let you know that with the accounts that you actually used to sign up for the event tonight, you will be getting an email very shortly from McBain Camera that will have an exclusive offer that is valid from tonight until December 23rd on Canon cameras and lenses. If you don't receive the email, be sure to check your spam or junk folder, or contact McBain Camera specifically if you don't find that email. If you have any questions about product availability or inventory, please direct those to McBain Camera, though I can kind of touch upon that. Obviously, the camera industry, as well as pretty much every other industry right now, is going through some interesting times with inventory. But we do get a lot of questions, so I can try and address those if you have any. If you have any technical questions tonight that I can't answer, or anything that's a little over even my own head, please feel free to reach out to McBain Camera via email, or give one of their stores a call, and a sales associate will be able to assist you in getting the answers that you need. But again, on behalf of Canon Canada, I want to thank you very much. So with that being said, let's go to, I did see some questions in the chat. So Jolene, I don't know if you want to go through some of the questions that you might have seen here. I think most of them are for Nicole. So if there is anything for Canon, let me know. I think Jolene might be frozen, actually.
Oh.
That's you and I, Nicole. All right. Well, I'm sure Jolene will come back on the call here. So I'm just going to scroll through some of the questions here. Actually,
sure.
There was a few questions I noticed that had to do, there was more than one that had to do specifically with focal lengths. Now, you had mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that you use the RF51.2, I believe. You use the tilt shift 51.2 or 52.8 with the macro, and then the 70 to 200. Was that the EF 70 to 200 or the RF 70 to 200?
I just got the RF, but for years I was using the EF, but I just got the RF. But both are the 2.8. And then I also have the 24 to 70 2.8 as well. But I use that rarely for like wide shots. But as you can see, I'm almost always like 50.
I was kind of curious about this because it did kind of bring up a good question, which, you know, I talk to a lot of different photographers, and it does come down to kind of personal opinion. But you know, you spent tonight showing us a lot. Hi, Jolene.
Hi.
You've kind of shown us a lot of your great photography, and you do a lot of portrait work, but you're also incorporating a lot of area around the subjects as well. When you're doing portrait work, I mean, I hear from a lot of different people that their favorite focal length for portrait work can be anywhere from 50 to 135 millimeters. Do you have a sweet spot that you like to use for your portrait work in particular?
Yeah, like I like 50 is like where I hang out almost all the time. That's where I feel the most comfortable, and that's where I feel like I can get just close enough, or I like the intimacy that the 50 can allow you to have. So whether it's weddings or whether it's portrait work, I use that length.
Excellent.
Oh, and then like my face is frozen.
I think actually, Jolene had mentioned this earlier. I think we actually have so many people on tonight. It has been a little bit choppy, but I think the audio has been at least very good. And I know your photos.
What a beautiful frame to freeze on.
There was another question that you that came up in the chat today. That was now we've lost Nicole. Nicole, are you still there?
Oh, I'm here still.
Okay. Jessica Storm had a question. She said, what does a conversation between you and your clients look like when you're narrowing down what story they want to tell or concept that they want to shoot?
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. What does the conversation between you and your clients look like in advance when you're narrowing down what type of story you want to tell or concept you want to shoot for them?
It all depends. Sometimes I'll ask clients like if they have something in mind, and they don't, and they literally like, oh, do whatever you want to do. And other times clients are very specific on wanting to capture a certain story, or wanting, again, to like show them moving into their new home. But I would say more often than not, I have clients showing up just saying like, we just want nice photos. We love your portfolio. And then I also have it where clients were literally just show me like portfolio examples of other sessions that I've shot and say that they want to create similar looks to that. So then even if they say that, I'm always like, okay, well, let's do that. There I am. I'll be like, let's do that, but let's add something that makes it unique to you, or play on that. So I love when clients have ideas, because then it lets me know the direction that they want to go in. But I never just want to repeat old work. I want to make it interesting and unique to them.
It seems like the real kind of boiled down angle that you take is like really just ensuring that the lines of communication both ways are quite open. And ensuring that you're getting what their opinions are. I'm sure you're throwing a lot of ideas at them, and then they're throwing ideas back at you, and it just kind of builds from there, correct?
Yeah, and honestly, like when I work with the clients that I work with, it's never like, I truly become friends with like almost all of my clients, because it is more about the experience too. The reason why I can get clients so comfortable and get the type of looks that I can get is because I do truly care about what they want to get out of it. I do truly care about why they're there, how they want the end result to look at. And it is very collaborative. I don't just have them show up and just kind of shoot away and say, like, see you later. I want to know about, you know, their background, how they met, if it's just for them, if they're on a health journey or anything like that. The clients that I have, they know that when I work with them, I truly care about them. And I think that plays such a big role in like how photos translate to viewers too.
Okay. There was another question here. There was another question here from Mercedes. So obviously you had talked about, you know, incorporating light. You had incorporated props. Mercedes' question is, what do you recommend when using lights themselves as a prop? An example would be Christmas trees. Like, how do you balance other lighting sources with feature lights?
Yeah, it all depends on the setup. So I recently got the ProPhoto A10 light. And before that, I just was using all natural light. And it's been a really fun light to use, to either use as continuous light or to use as a strobe light to balance it out. Because, because I'm a movier shooter, I don't mind if something's not perfectly lit. I like when things have intentional shadows. So if you want a bright and airy look all the time, obviously you would light it so differently than how I light things. But yeah, so for like the Christmas tree and all of that, I was lucky in that particular setup that I had a great window space in front of it, giving a lot of natural light so that it exposed it very well. But right now, even where I am, where it looks like I'm doing a Christmas special, this is just in my living room. I have a lamp that it's at a very warm temperature, like right in front of me, balancing out that light and leaving it all like warm lighting in here. I could have used a ring light, but then I would have been a very like cool toned, not as like a cozy Christmas special look that I was like going for. So it all depends on like the setup of your space. So it's kind of a hard question to answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a question for me I just want to address here. Desiree June was asking, are EF lenses going to be completely discontinued? The answer is no, I haven't heard anything of that sort. I do know even when we announced the original EOS R, I believe it was very shortly removed, or even the same announcement that went out, we had announced the new versions of the version 3s of the EF 400 and 600 millimeter lenses. And we continue to sell a lot of EF lenses as well. Yeah, no, it's not something that I've heard. It's just that when we, came out with the R series and the RF lenses, that allowed us to really kind of, flex our engineering muscle, let's say. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of lenses come out in the RF series. There's still, areas for us to kind of expand and bring in new offerings and things that are unique even to the RF series, because obviously Nicole was saying she was shooting with the R5 and the 5D Mark IV. So she's kind of got, you've got feet in both camps. And certainly even if you are transitioning into R series cameras, with the adapters that we have, you're able to use any EF or EFS lens on the R5, the R6, the R, or the RP, and with no functional drop off whatsoever. So yeah, no, EF lenses are still sticking around. And, just as a sales rep, I do know that there's just tons and tons of those lenses that still get sold every day. So,
and the adapter is great for that. I get a lot of people asking me too, because they know that I use both lines of cameras. The adapter to use the EOS lenses on the R5 or any of that like mirrorless line, there's no loss of quality. They work just as great. It's amazing.
Yeah. I would say, just because I personally also used to shoot a lot of 5D4, and I primarily kind of shoot R6, but a lot of the lenses that I still own are EF. I would say that even some of the functionality that I saw that was really great, pairing a 5D Mark IV with, say, my 16-35 2.8 version 3. I find now with the technology that I'm able to use in the R6 camera, specifically because I do a lot of like astrophotography. You know, I'm able to like nail focus a little bit easier. You know, just in general, like if I'm birding or if I'm shooting snowboarding or something along those lines, the autofocus capability on some of the newer tech is really mind blowing. Not to take anything away.
Birding?
Birding, yeah, that's something that as a snowboard photographer, I didn't think I would get into. But at the end of the day, it's still a fast moving subject.
So you mean like birds?
Birds, shooting birds, yes.
Oh, wicked. I didn't know you did that. That's awesome.
You know, my background was snowboard photography, where you generally tend to think of a composition and you know exactly where your subject is going to be. And then birding, there's a lot more uncertainty with it. And I am finding some of the new tech is just unbelievable for that type of application. So it's, again, you know,
that's so cool. That's a whole other world that, like, I know photographers who shoot nature, and it's very challenging. But it's so cool.
It was not something I was expecting to talk about tonight, considering the topic of your presentation. But
people are writing down notes, birding.
So we do have a few more questions. We got one for you, Nicole. What's been your most memorable destination shoot? That's from Alana.
Oh man, honestly, they're all so cool for different reasons, and sometimes it's like a connection that you have with the client, or there's, you know, it's an insane sunset or anything like that, like something happening with the clouds. One of the shoots that I did show a little bit in there was that was really cool to experience. We were at Mount Murin in Switzerland for this couple's wedding, or like this was their pre-wedding dinner photos. And the way, it's the highest point, the highest altitude in Switzerland, and it was blue hour, and they were going up this cliff and looking over, and there was all this like fog, and I was taking photos of them, and the fog was literally like raising up and going down, and it was literally going that fast. It was going up and going down. Because it was blue hour, it was starting to get a little bit dark. It was actually very challenging to shoot because it was getting hazy as well. But in terms of experiencing a moment with a couple, they're professional athletes, and they run all over. They do like professional running all over the world. So they run a lot in Europe. So we got photos of them like kind of holding hands and like running out of the mist together. They actually blew that photo up huge and put it in their living room. And I've stayed friends with them, and I've seen it since and everything. And that's just like, it was such a cool moment that you were like, Earth is so wild when all of this is happening. And I'm probably describing it terribly, but it was really cool to see.
You showed that photo earlier, did you not? I think I did. Yes.
And I even when I look at it now, it doesn't even showcase like how cool the moment was. But I've just never seen thick, heavy fog like go up, literally go up and down. Like I don't even understand how that was possible, because usually you just see it raised or you see it lower. But within that time frame, I think it was like 6 or 7 times that it kept going up and down, like while we were shooting. It was so bizarre. But there's so many places that I shot that are so amazing for different reasons. And some of my favorite places have been right here in Alberta. So yeah, it all depends.
It's pretty remarkable. I mean, I've been living in Calgary, and I know you guys are all based in Edmonton, but I'm down here in Calgary, and I've been living here for 10 years, but not being an Albertan, because I moved here from Vancouver, and before that, Ontario. Right. I'm very, very amazed at what we have at our disposal, because like you've mentioned several destinations, Switzerland that you shot in, Sydney, Portland, places that I've been to that I will say, if nobody's been there, these are all fantastic places to go visit and photograph. But what we have at our disposal here in this province is something that I don't think I was fully aware of when I moved here. I mean, truth be told, I moved here for a business opportunity. And a lot of what we've really come to enjoy and love, including the minus 27 degrees that we're all experiencing right now, were things that I think I just grew to love later. So, you know, really getting out and just exploring and being creative with what you have, I think is something that is a skill that you have to develop over time, but we're very, very lucky.
Oh, for sure.
Oh
yeah. We're so lucky here. There's so much to shoot with. And I think it's funny. So many photographers that I mentor, that I talk to, get so caught up in location. And I think this is why I was so excited about this topic, is that some of my favorite work has been shot in like almost a basement, like stuff that if you have a little bit of light, whether that's natural or it's artificial lighting, so many people get caught up in location. So yes, it's cool to travel. Yes, it's cool to have interesting places to photograph. But if you have a bit of light and you can get, you know, good interactions with your clients, you can make them feel comfortable, you can transform your space or keep it really simple. Like you can create magic anywhere. It doesn't have to be in Switzerland. It doesn't have to be anywhere. Look at it, all those places when I was in Switzerland when I was pregnant. The other time that I literally found something by a drain pipe, like in an alley, and that was the place that I shot that photo, versus like the rolling hills and like the villas. So that's even a great example, just being like my brain to like that little corner of that nook.
Yeah. There is another question here from Mohit that I think is touching upon a different topic that we haven't touched, but I think a very relevant one, and one that comes up quite a lot during these live streams that I see. So what tips would you give to photography business owners in the marketing area? What steps do you take to attract the right clients?
It's so important to show what you want to shoot. I know a lot of, especially if you're a newer photographer, a lot of people will just show everything they're shooting because they want to get more work. But I'll have so many people say to me like, oh, I want to get out of photographing families, or I don't want to do weddings anymore, but I want to show that I'm busy. So they're still posting it. And then they're confused as to why they're still getting hired for this work. So it's so important that you show what you want to shoot. So if you want to get into the destination world, or want to be traveling with your photography, but no one's hired you for it, it's so important to travel on your own and start shooting that. Or even if you're just vacationing with friends, bring your camera and start showing different locations so people see that, oh, okay, you shoot in different areas. If you've never shot a wedding and you want to get into that world, you need to show it. So that's so important to second shoot, or to shoot a stylized set where you have, you know, a wedding couple or anything like that. So now, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been shooting for a really long time, and I have a certain style that now like clients are aware of and they come to me for it. But it took years to harness that and to project what I wanted to get those kinds of clients. And now I'm fortunate enough that I've gotten to that point. But it does take time and hard work.
Yeah, I feel like because that question does come up on a lot of live streams, you know, what that really kind of comes back to is finding your voice, right? Finding your unique take on X, whatever topic it is that you or whatever discipline of photography you like to shoot, right? You know, it is a very inclusive community, obviously, and it's just a matter of finding your place in there and finding your voice, really.
And it's okay if you are struggling in a certain area to try different areas too. I'll have people tell me that they're like worried about transitioning into something else, and like, what's the worst that can happen? You try it and it doesn't work out. Well, then at least you know. So I think if you are shooting and you know you like photography, but you're not fulfilled, it might be time to try a different arena, or to change it up in a big way to see if there's something else. Like, look at you, like you shot several different things before getting into your position now with Canon. And for me, I started off in sports photography, and now I don't shoot sports at all. So, you know, just because you start in a certain area doesn't mean you have to end there as well.
Yeah, fair enough. There's a question here from Megan. Nicole, what was the biggest advantage that you have noticed switching to mirrorless?
Oh, it's just so intuitive to me. It's so much faster. I do find, like, I still love my Mark IV. It's a beautiful camera. I love the tones that I get out of it, but it's like I have to try really hard to miss the shot now. Like, especially if it's like a fast moving shot or a couple dancing, walking down an aisle. The combination of the R5 with the 51.2, it's so sharp, so tapped, but then still is, you know, such a dreamy lens. It gives like, I'm literally using it right now as I'm talking to you. Yeah, it's so easy to use. And then I love being able to change settings on the lens like that. I find I'm so much faster than going and fiddling with the back of my camera. So I have it to change the shutter on mine. So especially if it's like a sunny but cloudy day and it's changing the lighting really quickly, like I can move so quick with that camera. So I'm just faster at everything. And honestly, like it's so sharp. So nailing the focus.
Just to clarify, if anybody isn't aware, what she's referring to is on the RF series of lenses. There's now a control ring on those lenses that allow you to change some of the settings. You can assign different settings that can be controlled by using the control ring on the lens specifically. So you can change shutter, aperture, ISO, or exposure compensation. And if you are adapting any of your EF lenses, there's a specific adapter that has that functionality built in. It's the control ring adapter that allows you to have that control as well. So if you're a manual shooter who's used to, say, doing the shutter on the front and then the aperture on the back, you can then assign ISO capability or exposure compensation on the front, or in Nicole's case, shutter speed. So it's just one way to really kind of customize the camera and the shooting experience to be able to change one more setting without pulling the camera away from your eye. And of course, if you're doing portrait work or shooting with clients, obviously, you know, having that quick response time can mean the difference between getting the shot and not getting the shot. So it really can, you know, impact people's ability to be able to perform when you're shooting there.
I've literally had moments where I was shooting, and because I was able to adjust it so quickly, because I didn't have to pull it back and look at my screen and just change it on the ring of the lens, that I was able to expose a first kiss like no problem. But if I had that second of pulling away, I'm like, oh, I would have missed it.
Yeah. Stephen Jones here in the comment section was saying that he has set his set to white balance. So that's, you know, another option that people can have.
Yeah, that's what I want to clarify too. It doesn't have to be to shutter. You can literally put it to anything. So for me, that's just like what I change more than other settings. So I want to put to either that or the ISO. But you can put it to anything.
Yeah. Dennis Burkholz has a question here. The shot with you in the tub, was it an overlay you applied, or were there lights on the floor? It was a nice idea.
That was an overlay for that shot. For that particular shot, that was off an iPhone, and then the finished shot was an overlay. And that was because the client wanted a certain film texture for some of their look. So that's how I presented it to them. That was our backup option. And then I just liked how it looked, so I left it at that. But sometimes when you see like a bit of blur in my images, I've used everything from, like, Jana's hair is pink. So sometimes I'll like put her hair in front of my lens, or I'll actually like lick my lens and get like a streak of light on it. I'll put little twinkle lights in front of it, curtains, fabric, tons of stuff. But that one was an overlay.
Okay. Mohit has another question. Is it important to keep posting or stories on Instagram to show that you are busy? I feel every time I take a break for a few days or weeks, it's hard to go back to get engagement.
Yeah, so I actually had the opportunity to talk with some of the engineers behind Instagram through another project. And it was very interesting what they had to say, because they said that if you're using Instagram and you are posting permanent feeds and using Insta stories, it's like driving a car with a full tank of gas with a flat tire. In order to keep your engagement up and to keep the algorithm happy as of right now, because I'll get to that, it will change. You should be utilizing Reels and IGTV as well. So I struggle with telling people that because I hate how Instagram has made people feel like they need to be so performative on this app, where it used to be just about presenting your work and letting your work talk about itself. And now the app has slowly become into a thing where they want you to like sing and dance in front of it. They want you to talk even if you don't feel like talking to the camera, to get a certain kind of level of engagement and to not be hidden. So I have a love-hate with Instagram about it, because I think especially for artists, I am outgoing, but I think for artists who are more introvert, they really struggle with Instagram now, because it's kind of pushing them in a direction that they're just not comfortable with. So apparently Instagram is going to be changing, and they're going back to chronological in the new year, which sounds really promising and is very exciting, especially for people that don't like singing and dancing, making reels and doing all these things to like keep up engagement. But I'm curious to see like how that will actually play out, and if it'll make it like it was.
Okay. I think
so in a long sense, yes, but I hope not always.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I think I see one more question on here, actually. And I think, you know, unless there's any ones that come in a little bit late here, I think we might want to try wrapping it up after this. So, because we've kept a lot of people on the call tonight. But do you have any tips, prompts, or exercises when working with subjects who may feel shy or awkward in front of the camera?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is that is to keep talking. I think a lot of the times people feel really awkward when there's silence. That's another reason why I always have music playing. Especially I try to play the music that they enjoy while we're shooting. And I really press that at them. So if I'm like, oh, what do you like to listen to? Almost everyone's going to go, oh, I listen to everything, because they don't want to be a burden. And I'm like, well, I'm going to choose something. So you might as well just tell me like what you'd like to hear. And then they might be like, oh, okay, I like jazz, or okay, I like pop. But I don't like there to be flat air, even if I'm just complimenting them or I'm talking to myself, but like with them in the room. I find that really helps. So being very directive also really helps. I think a lot of the intimidation of being behind the lens is thinking like, I don't know how to pose, I don't know what to do. So it's very important to me to tell clients, like, okay, move your butt here, just drop your chin, that looks great. Giving encouraging feedback while I direct them, and keeping things going and keep talking while I'm directing the entire shoot is like so important to like easing how they feel. And you'll see like clients will start at a shoot and their shoulders are like up to here. And the more you direct them and the more you talk to them, you just see them kind of like relax. And sometimes I'll even just pull my camera down and just talk to them, like a person being like, oh, have you tried that in a restaurant, blah, blah, or like talking to them like a friend, and being like, okay, we should get back to you, and like start shooting again. So my sessions tend to run longer, but I think it's so worth it for the overall effect, because it's so important that they do feel good and comfortable. But obviously I know for a lot of artists, it is challenging versus if you have someone who's overly extroverted and playful in front of the camera, but that's not their fault. It's up to you as the artist to bring that out in them. So that's where it's also important. Like, do you have any inspiration photos you can show me? And if they show you photos that are more like subdued or not super smiley, it's super important to straight up ask them, like, are you trying to lean into that? Is that kind of like the vibe you want to go with? Or do you want more like happy, smiley stuff? So even managing expectations of how to shoot them and talking about that stuff in really like plain terms, I think takes down the fear of being behind a lens as well. So I think a lot of it could be too, just like someone being nervous about being in front of the camera and not knowing what kind of questions they can ask. So I just like put everything out on the table. I try to make it as comfortable as possible. And that usually helps big time.
Excellent.
Awesome. I did want to just pop in here really quick. we did get a couple of questions through email. So Karina asked, is this being recorded? And yes, it is. So if anyone is wanting the recording of tonight, if you're viewing it right now and you want to have the recording, you can just send the email. I did pop the workshop at McBain Camera email back in there in the comments. So yeah, shoot us an email if you are wanting like a recording of tonight's event. I also got a question that I think is for Russ. It says, I am a part of the webinar with you, Nicole, and Jolene. I'm wondering if there are any Canon specific workshops to learn more about specific cameras, lenses, and the basics for shooting in different lighting to better understand how to use my camera and which settings to use. So I don't know if there are like Canon specific ones. I do know that McBain is always more than willing to help. We're as much into education as we are into selling the gear. So please, by all means, either call or come into one of our stores. But I don't know if Russ has a more specific Canon answer to this one.
Well, what I was going to say was, yeah, McBain obviously is a very good educational destination for that type of instruction as well. So certainly I would engage them directly. Another good resource actually is Canon Canada and Canon USA's YouTube page. You know, I don't know what specifics you may be looking for in terms of utilizing the camera, but there's certainly lots of resources on there about the different capabilities of the camera, certainly a variety of different things about, you know, using autofocus, etc. And there's certainly a lot of resources on the Canon USA website pertaining to utilizing different features of different cameras as well. So, but again, because it is, you know, there's a lot of different articles on there. You can certainly engage McBain if you have a tough time trying to find something that might be specific to you that you may not be able to find on the web. So that's what I would recommend.
Awesome. Thanks, Russ. Thank you, Nicole. This has been actually really educational and entertaining, and I love looking at all your photos. We did have lots of comments of how truly breathtaking some of your pictures are, and I have to agree, and they're quite beautiful.
Thank you.
Like, super inspirational. That. I really love the sort of like, you can do it yourself. You don't need to have a studio.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think way too often people get caught up in that and just like seeing images online and not seeing what's behind the scenes and thinking that they can't. And anything that I can do, you guys can do too. So it's important to talk about.
I mean, there is something to be said for having an eye for seeing what you're looking at and knowing, you know, now is the time to take the picture. But a lot of that is practice and just like
for sure. Practice, having proper equipment. Yeah,
for sure. Well, this has been excellent. Thanks again to Canon Canada. Thanks again to Nicole Ashley. Again, I'm Jolene at McBain. So if you do have any questions regarding this event or not, shoot us an email or call the store, come into the store and chat with one of our sales staff. We're always ready to nerd out about cameras and all that. So yeah. This has been a great event. And Russ, did you want to just mention that promo one more time, or did you?
Well, yes. So I mean, I do want to mention that obviously we do have a Canon exclusive offer that is going out to everybody via email, and certainly I just want to remind everybody, if you don't see the email there, check the email addresses that you signed up for the event with. If you don't see it there, check your spam or junk folder first, and if not, contact McBain. And other than that, it's on all Canon cameras and Canon lenses. And now's a great time anyways, because we do have the Canon Level Up promotion going on right now. So certainly if you are looking to either upgrade your camera or add a lens to your quiver, now's a great time to do it. And so please feel free to touch base with your local McBain camera location.
Spectacular. All right, we're going to close things off now. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Signing off.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I had such a great time talking about everything. I hope it helped, or I hope it at least gave you guys some ideas of what you can do on your own.
Yeah, at the very least, it was very inspirational. So thank you very much.
Take care, everybody. Have a great night.
Yeah. Bye-bye.